Hey crew, Coach Josh here with GarageGangGyms.com. I've been a personal trainer for over 10 years, and with that, I've been coaching weightlifting and being a weightlifter myself for most of those years. Now, what I want to do with this series, and this is a series, so there's going to be a lot of videos coming out from what I would expect for you to do on day one, day two, day three, if you were just starting out or trying to relearn how to do your weightlifting skills. First part of the series is we're going to talk about the clean. So today we're talking about what I would love a coach to have gone back in time and said, this is what I want you to know day one. So many videos out there, they take you through the entire clean in one video. They're usually really quick, 20 minutes, maybe they do a deep dive, but they have you going all the way from the floor on day one, and you haven't even conceptualized what is going on at the top. So that's what we're going to focus on today is the top. We call it a high hang clean. Now, just for some vocabulary really quickly, when I say clean, I'm talking full squat. If you aren't able to squat, that's perfectly fine. You can do a power, which means you're catching it above parallel. And if you have knee pain when you're doing front squats, doing power cleans or a power variation can be a great alternative for you if you're having that knee pain. Now, we're not going to really talk about it today, but if the front rack for you is a little complicated, maybe the front squat is still tough for you, I'm going to link different videos down below in the description talking about mobilizing your front rack position so it doesn't hurt your wrist, doesn't hurt your elbows. Also, a front squat video if you guys are still kind of struggling with that. Okay, so the first concept, if I were going back in time to teach myself, is talking about that high hang clean position. Now, why? So many people, when they watch a clean, they watch it in full speed, or even if they watch it in slow-mo, they don't understand quite what's happening. And when they turn over the bar, they rack the bar, and usually to your eye, it looks like they're catching it at the bottom of that squat. And that's just not a good way of thinking about doing the clean. So our first drill is going to be specifically directed towards making sure you catch that bar before you get to the bottom of your squat. Now, I'm going to cut away. You're going to see me doing a heavier lift and showing you why you might think I'm catching it in the bottom of a squat, but really I'm catching it before the bottom so that I can slow it down so that I'm able to redirect it. So I'm going to cut to that video now.
Okay, so here's me doing a high hang clean. I'm going to run it through full speed, and then I'm going to slow it down and show you something you may have missed. So here's a high hang clean. Okay, so what did you notice? It looked like as I was doing the clean, I went into a full squat, but that's not actually true. So if I slow this video down, you're going to see what I'm getting at. So I'm going to dip, my shoulders stay over the bar as long as I can, we'll talk about that, and I racked it right there. Let's back that up. I racked it halfway down into the hole, but at full speed it looks like I went right into the squat. This is something that's going to be so crucial about this high hang clean, is that we try to rack this bar as soon as we can, and we fight with this bar, trying to prevent it from pushing us down. But the weight is heavy enough that it forces us down, and then we stand up immediately. And that's the main takeaway from this, is standing up immediately. So let's talk about some more key points. So first thing we want to talk about is this top position. I'm standing as tall as I can, legs are relatively straight, my knuckles are pointed down, just like we'll talk about later on in this video. I'm going to take a really big breath. I'm going to dip like we talk about with the diving board drill later. I'm going to dip, I'm going to keep my shoulders over this bar as long as I can, and I'm going to drive against that diving board as fast as I can. So let's see that first part here. So I dip, I stay extended, I push into that diving board as fast as I can. Now, something that's really important that you'll notice is as I stand up, I do my very best to keep my back angle exactly the same. The tendency is your hips are going to shift forward, your shoulders are going to shift back, and we want to avoid that at all costs. If my hips are moving, that means that the bar is going to deviate away from me, and that's not what we want. So again, let's watch those hips. So I'm going to dip. I keep my hips in as same position as I can so that that bar travels straight up my body. By pointing my wrists down, that's going to allow me to keep that bar really close to me, right? It's going to keep me really close to that bar so that as I'm going to turn it over, I can rack that bar and stand up. Okay, let's talk about what my arms are doing after I extend. A lot of people, they have a tendency to think about pulling their elbows really high because maybe in their classes, they parrot what they say in CrossFit without context, and they say something like scarecrow or pull those elbows to your chin or something like that. In fact, all we need to do is pull our elbows back just a little bit. And since our wrists are down, that's actually going to cause this bar to come straight up. And just that my elbows are back a little allows me to quickly bring my elbows forward and through. If I bring my elbows too high, then I have to do this big circle to get my elbows in front of that bar. Where if I go back, then it's less distance that I have to travel to get my elbows through. And again, because my wrists are pointed down, not only is that going to keep the bar a lot closer to me, but that allows me to bring my elbows back a little bit so that I can bring them forward faster, or at least in less time. So let's see that. Oops, turn the pen off. So I drive, elbows pulled back a little bit, and then I'm already transitioning under the bar. A lot of people have a tendency at the top here, they're going to pull as long as they can, as hard as they can, and that's just not necessary. In fact, less pull on a clean is better because we want to get under the bar as fast as we possibly can. If we spend too much time pulling on this bar, it's definitely going to crash on us. So I'm only spending as much time pulling that bar as possible, only creating enough separation between me and the bar so that I can get my shoulders under it, and then I already try to start pushing up on it. The further that bar is away from our shoulders when we go to rack this bar, the more it's going to come crashing down on us. And we want to avoid that at all costs. And that's where a lot of people that think a clean is you trying to drop into a full squat as fast as possible, that's why they end up having the bar crash on them so much, is because they try to mimic what they see, but they don't realize that what they're seeing is somebody trying to rack that bar before the squat, and the bar beats them and forces them into the squat. But it happens so fast, just like we talked about, that it looks like you just go right into the bottom of that squat. And that causes a lot of separation because they're thinking, I got to just dive bomb down there. Who cares where the bar is? And they just drop. And that's not what I want. I want you to just barely get under the bar and already start standing up. Boom.
Okay, so now you've got this in your head from a theoretical standpoint. Let's practice it, okay? Now, with the high hang clean, which we will eventually get to today, there's a couple things we want to do beforehand. And the first thing we want to do is what's called a tall clean. So we're going to take out the dip, the drive. We're just going to start from a nice tall standing position and just work at timing that bar's turnover into the rack position as our feet hit the ground. So let's get there. Okay, theory first, then I'll tell you what I was doing. So we want to make sure when we're holding this bar, we're pointing our knuckles down. That way, once we are coming through that full power position, which we'll talk about in other videos, that bar doesn't kick out. So our knuckles are down. Then I'm going to pull my elbow about that much. That's it. I'm pulling my elbow that much. That's enough that when I unlock my legs, that's enough energy to pull me under so that I can try to rack that bar before I hit the bottom of that squat, just like we talked about when I was demonstrating with a heavier weight. So a little bit more. I'm going to be standing really tight and tall. Now, a lot of people are going to have a tendency to try to push their hips forward because they're thinking about they're squeezing their glutes or a hip lockout. This isn't a kettlebell swing. If we drive our hips forward with the kettlebell, that kettlebell goes forward. If we do that with the bar is going forward. So that doesn't make sense. What we need to make sure is happening is we're as straight as we can with our legs. Our butt isn't driving us forward, but there's some tension in there. And I'm trying to keep my shoulder over my wrists for as long as I can. The moment I pull my elbows, then I can start to come behind the bar. Because imagine if this were a maximal weight upright row. We're trying to be strict, but then at some point we're going to pull and try to lean back a little bit to generate more motion. That's essentially what we're doing with this clean. Now, we are not trying, like an upright row, to pull that bar as high as possible. All we need to do is cause separation from our leg by pulling a little bit. That little bit of separation is enough separation for me to transition under the bar, rack the bar, try to stand up, but then the weight is going to push me down. So let's take this bar. My knuckles are down. My legs are straight. What I'm going to do is really stick my chest up. As much as I can, I'm going to try to extend my upper back without trying to lean back, right? We're trying not to let our hips come forward at all. Legs are straight, upper back is really extended. I'm going to try to maintain this back angle, this back position, as I just barely pull my elbows. I'm going to relax my legs. That'll cause me to go under the bar. I'll rack the bar, try to drive my legs into the floor and stand up without hesitation. Let's do it all the way down. So I'll rack it. And again, a good thing for you to practice before you go into that full squat is to try to catch it early and stand up right away. The moment your feet touch, you're standing up. One more. Again, all I'm doing is I'm already at the top of my jump. I'm going to pull and I'm going to rack that bar and immediately stand up. This is the best time for you to work on where are my feet moving, right? We're going to start with our feet under us. We're nice and tall. We're going to move our feet quickly into that squat stance. Hips are open so that if I have to squat the bar, I'm ready to. But again, I don't choose to squat the bar. The bar makes me squat the bar. I'm always essentially trying to get that bar racked and stand up as soon as I can. But again, sometimes weight overcomes you and you won't be able to do that. The next piece of the same drill, this tall clean that we're talking about, is something that you're going to have a tendency to do is as you're pulling and squatting, you're going to change your body's position, right? Maybe you're so used to throwing your hips that you are used to catching something like this with your butt out. Or from here, you're thinking down and your hips, instead of being back here so that it's a nice position for you to front squat in, you bring your hips down here, right? Because you're thinking down. So now what I want you to do is a few repetitions where all you're thinking about is where your tailbone is, where your lower back is. And if you can keep that same angle, and you may need to film yourself doing this, from this top position when you drop. You may not want to do the full squat just yet. Maybe you want to do a few power variations just to check that you're keeping that back in the same angle. So I'm going to turn a little bit so you can see what that looks like. Again, you're also thinking about keeping that back extended, keeping everything in position. Because if I pull, even if my hips are in the right place, but my shoulders drop forward because maybe I pulled my body out of position, that's not going to be a good rack. Ideally, we keep our back in virtually the same position the entire time, which is again why we're not taking it from the floor right away. Okay, so we're going to move on to the drill and why you came to this video today. This next move, the high hang clean, is what I wish a coach would tell me to do. Now, before we move away from this tall clean, I use the tall clean in at least one of my warm-ups for cleans each week. Now, I may change a few things, maybe more sets, more reps, more whatever. Maybe I'll use straps if I'm really trying to mobilize, like you would see in the mobility video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But I'm going to do 3 repetitions at a time, maybe 2 to 3 sets with the empty bar. Maybe the first time I'm doing it power-wise, maybe the next time I'm trying to catch it a little lower and stand up, maybe the third time I'm catching it a little lower and standing up, and then maybe on a 4th set, I throw a little bit of weight on. Maybe by then I'm putting on my tape for my hook grip. But I will always do some type of a priming exercise before I go on to a main move. Now, this high hang clean, I actually like to use as a priming move if I get bored of the tall clean. But this high hang clean for you for the next 5 to 6 weeks, this is what I want you to focus on. Let's back things up to that tall clean. The tall clean is where we want to get to. We just have something to do before we get there. And what we are going to be doing is essentially going into a loaded position through, I guess, what you could call a jump. Now, the reason I don't necessarily like calling it a jump is so many people don't actually know how to jump well. What I'm going to think about is if I'm on a diving board, Okay, so it is still a jump, but imagine you're on a diving board. You're bouncing, you're bouncing, you're bouncing. Right before you hit that board really hard and go into the air to do your trick or just dive into the water, what are you going to do? You're going to bounce, you're going to bounce, you're going to bounce. When you're ready to go for it, you're going to feel the bounce. You're going to push against that board as hard as you can because you feel that spring of the board and it's going to throw you into the air. That's exactly what I need you to be thinking about is when we go down into this loaded position, which is just from here, this is going to be what we call as our power position, our contact point. You'll hear other coaches say other things. For us today, just think of this as that diving board position, right? You're about to jump off that diving board. Our bar is going to be tight to us. We're going to be here. I need you to think, I'm just trying to get back to that tall, clean position, which if you recall, I was saying you need to have your legs tight and straight. Why? Because if we're thinking about this diving board position, we just pushed against that diving board. That gets our legs nice and straight. I'm still in a great position here so that I can turn it over and go into my tall, clean drill that we were just working on. So it's just one extra step. So let's take this bar. Now, we're still going to start with our legs nice and tight, nice and tall position, because this is where we want to finish. Most people, they're going to try to finish way back here, but then their legs are actually bent, and then they're going to be sending that bar forward. We want to get to a position every time we start. I'm lightly pushing against that diving board. My shoulders are over the bar, and my legs are really tight. If I wanted to do the tall, clean drill right now, I could. But from this position, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my breath, really extend through my upper back, keeping my arms long. I'm just going to bend my knees just a little bit. From here, I feel like, yep, this is where I could jump. In fact, if I were to do a counter movement jump where I go like this, that's about where I would bring myself down. Again, I don't really like the analogy jump because people forget about pushing against the floor. But you could see that from a position is that if this is where I would jump from, this is where I want my bar to be before I would go through that extension, through that jump, through the tall, clean drill that we've talked about. So I'm here, extended legs are tight, breath, find that position where I feel, yep, this is where I could jump from. Then at first, all I want you to do really slowly is imagine you're pushing against that diving board. And you're just going to try to get back to that nice locked leg position. Boom, right here. Then we can go through our tall, clean drill and restart. Our goal is this first time, maybe even the second set, we're just going to pause, pull. Because we're trying to teach our brain how to layer on the previous drill with this new drill. If we go through it too fast, you're going to start making a lot of mistakes. And the biggest mistake people make is they start to really kick their hips forward or even shift into their feet. You should feel totally balanced the whole time. Nice extension, big breath. Dip. I'm good here. I'm going to push. Boom. And go. Now, in order to make this drill make sense to us, I do want you for at least 2 of your 6 weeks to pause down in this power position before you come back the other way. As you get more skilled, fine. You can start doing kind of a dip and drive like you see me doing in the video from before. I just dip and I go. The reason, most people when they're first learning, when they dip and they go down too fast, they're going to let the bar drift out on them. But if when we dip and go down and we pause, assuming our shoulders are over our wrists, like we were talking about in the tall, clean position, assuming our shoulders are over our wrists, that means I'm being really active with keeping the bar in close, which will come in handy for future drills, okay? Keeping that bar close. It should be touching us. We don't have to be slamming it into us, but it should be touching us. And again, if we go too fast, our arms have a tendency to drift out. Then we try to jump, and now that bar is out in front of us already, and it doesn't even touch us. So we want to be tall. We're going to dip. It's going to stay on us. I'm going to drive. It still is touching me to that last second. Then I can pull and go. So let's do that. Let's take the pause at the top away, but not the pause at the bottom. So here we go. Nice and tall. Dip. Pause. Go. Ready? Dip. Pause. Go. One more time. You thought I was going to squat it, didn't you? It should look like that. You shouldn't know if I'm going to squat it or if I'm not. Why? Same position. Exact same positions. I don't catch a power like this, and I don't catch then my squat like this. No, it doesn't make sense. I'm going to try to make my powers and my squats look identical because, again, this clean, it's a power only if the bar doesn't make me squat it. Now, if you're just using this drill to warm up, great. Do the power, catch it, hit the squat position so that you can get more comfortable. If you're going to add some weight on, great. You still need to make sure you are trying to rack that bar as fast as you can and stand up immediately, okay? If you can get that into your head, you're going to be a much better weightlifter. I need to accelerate this bar, rack it as fast as I can, stand up as fast as I can, right? We accelerate the bar to about here. From there, it's accelerating. I need to move as that bar is traveling, right? So I go here, the bar is already moving. I'm not doing this with my arms. My arms are just guiding the weight. I'm already moving under. I'm trying to catch it as it's peaking, like we talked about in that form video. I'm going to rack it, and I'm going to stand up as soon as I possibly can. I am not waiting for the bar, right? Just like we talked about in that video that we cut to before. You do not wait for the bar. You assume you are racking that bar, and you are just standing up. I want you to do this exercise 4 to 6 weeks in a row. So let's just pick Monday as the day that you're going to do this drill. The first time you do this drill, you're going to do 5 or 6 sets of 3. Now, Josh, how do I pick my weight? I want you to film every set. I want you to look at every set, and I want those sets, whatever weight you end up using, to be getting better and better and better as you do the sets. That tells me that you're using a pretty good weight. If it's too heavy, you're going to start to make bad mistakes. You're going to start to get tired. That's too heavy. A good rule of thumb to start is 20 pounds lighter than you think you should start at. I know it sounds too light, so let's say you're thinking, I'm going to do 135 today. Start at 115, because doing multiple repetitions in a row, week after week after week, because next week we can add some weight. The next week we can add some more weight. In 6 weeks, I want you guys to barely even recognize what your clean looks like from 6 weeks ago, because I want it to be so ingrained. I want it to be so natural for you to try to rack this bar as fast as possible and stand it up. And that's not going to happen if you try throwing on too much weight too soon, because you'll just start heaving that bar. You'll start going back into your old habits, falling into the wrong positions. And 6 weeks down the road, you're no better off than you are today. So this first week, maybe 5 sets of 3 at 115. Next week, maybe you do 8 sets of 3 at 115. Same weight, more repetitions. See if you can replicate that form again and again and again. The third week, maybe now we're only doing 4 sets of 2, and we're going to add 10, 15 pounds. Then after that, maybe we do 3 sets of 2, then 2 sets of 2. And then that final week, maybe you go for it. Maybe you do a really heavy set of 2 or a really heavy set of 1, just to kind of see if you're able to maintain your form. I do advise, though, if you're doing heavy sets of 1, please record yourself, because the tendency as you get really heavy is to really throw your shoulders back, something that we'll talk about coming up. But again, commit to this move, commit to all of the moves in the series for at least 4 weeks, if not 6 weeks, so that you guys can actually build onto that technique. Then you can go into an 8-week program, a 12-week program, just like I would write for my clients. But please, take your time with this. I would rather you underperform in your workouts than try to push it too far. So, what I wish I knew 10 years ago when I started weightlifting. I wish I had a coach that came to me and taught me the high hang clean drill. Again, this is just one piece of this entire series. We're going to cover the clean first, then we'll go about the jerk, then we'll talk about the snatch. So the high hang clean is such a crucial part of the entire lift. I accelerate the bar off the power position. I rack the bar as quickly as I possibly can. As soon as I even know that bar is being racked, I'm already trying to stand up. Because if I don't try to stand up right away, it's going to bury me, it's going to pin me, I'm going to lose my position. I'm trying to get there as quickly as I can without deviating my spinal position. Stand right up as quickly as I can. And that's why you hear that stomp. That stomp is not me just trying to pump the brakes. That stomp is more of me trying to get under as quickly as I can, rack that bar, and already start putting force into that bar. And that aggressive feet down as I move my feet is that stomp that you hear. So again, this is Coach Josh with GarageGangGyms.com. Please, if you like this video, please hit like. That really motivates me to keep putting out these videos more and more often. If you want to see the rest of the series, subscribe to this channel. It'll all be in a playlist. You'll have the clean playlist, the jerk playlist, the snatch playlist, all when all of these get uploaded. But please do these for 4 to 6 weeks. Take your time with them. Develop this over time. And this might actually stay part of your program forever because it is such a crucial move of how fast can I get that bar moving quickly up, get my body around it, rack it, stand up quickly. I'll see you next time.